The Rise of Africa, the continent, the diaspora, and BRICS explores the relationships that are affecting the global economy right now. This book explores the relationships of the African diaspora's influence on the African continent and why this is important in stabilizing relationships with an understanding of how BRICS impacts the future, good or bad. You can order your copy of The Rise of Africa today on Amazon.com. Neo-diplomacy is the new currency. Neo-diplomacy is the new currency. The reason that I can say that is you have a couple of different factors occurring right now as we speak on the world stage. The dollar is being disrupted. Nations are no longer wanting to engage with the United States. But the third factor that affects each and every one of us is that there is a diaspora from the African continent that's willing and able to engage our brothers and sisters on the continent.
Every journey begins with a simple act of care. For Quest to Unite Africa, that journey started with something simple: a mother, a newborn, and a promise that no life would be forgotten. We did not begin with buildings, we began with people. We packed mother newborn kits with our own hands because real change starts where the need is greatest. Those kids traveled farther than we imagined, and they opened our eyes to a deeper truth. Aid saves lives, but infrastructure saves generations. So we grew. Together with donors, volunteers, and partners, we sent a medical container to Burkina Faso. Not just supplies, but hope. Not just boxes, but proof that when a community comes together, healing moves across borders. That moment changed us because we realized something powerful. We weren't just delivering help, we were building a future. Now the journey continues. The next chapter is bigger than a shipment, bigger than a campaign. We are raising funds to build a state-of-the-art hospital, a place where mothers can give birth safely, where families can find care close to home, and where communities can grow stronger for generations to come. This hospital is not just a structure, it's a promise. A promise that healthcare will no longer be temporary. A promise that dignity will have a permanent home. And just like every step before, we cannot do this alone. Every gift, every brick, every name placed on the founder path becomes part of a story that began with compassion and is growing into legacy. It helps us move from emergency aid to lasting healing, from containers to care that never leaves, from vision to reality. Join us, stand with us, help us build a hospital that will serve generations, moving healthcare into action. Visit q2ua.org today.
All right. Shalom. Salama. Siemi. Shalom. Greetings to all my Israelite brothers and sisters from around the world. Just trying to make sure that I'm clocking the right time as I say greetings because I'm here now in the afternoon for really kind of I would say the foreseeable future. Whenever there's a holiday, things of that nature, I'll definitely be on in the morning. But right now, I have to live here on the afternoon. You know, that's how the Most High has um, brought me here over these 6+ years. It's been 6+ years, and um, it's a change. It's a little bit of a struggle because, I like to get into my routine. I have my routines. Everybody likes routines. And, part of my routine is always look, I like to do the morning show first. It gets me, it was able to set the tone and the pace for my day to fellowship. And now this is kind of a fellowship of sorts in the afternoon. But one of the things I did want to cover before I started the little sanctions merry-go-round. Again, I like to tell people we're still in the midst of a war, so don't get it twisted that we aren't, now nearing almost 180 days. That's where we're at. Almost 180 days. Coming close to that the U.S. has been at war. Now, this war is happening, but now they're trying to be a little subtle, right? Okay, we put on too much of the thickness because why? Because at the end or beginning of the day, they were trying to act like they're a Rambo. They're a Rambo. At the end of the day, they were being done in. And you could see the frailty of a nation that, number one, the lack of support in this nation. I'm going to tell you this. And shout out to my viewers on out there that send me these news stories. It hurts because again, they always try to say, "Oh, it doesn't." Don't jump to any conclusions. What else are we supposed to say? But man, the persecution of the saints, it's on. I want to get to this story because I have to share this. Thank you, brother Ira, for sharing this story with me. And man, it hurts. I really don't like to share these stories, but I have to because there's a war that's going on and a war that is taking place because you have to understand. All right, so Roanoke Rapids is really northern North Carolina. It's a little, I think if I'm it's north of the triangle, north of Raleigh, kind of bordering between Raleigh and the state line of Virginia. And those areas, as I told you when I drove through that a couple of years ago, back in June of 2024, that the picture that I took on the bathroom that I had stopped into to use at a gas station near Greensboro had stated, "Get ready for the upcoming race war." That was the verbatim, the language, or excuse me, the vernacular paraphrasing of the language. And at that time, a lot of our people, we go through life naive. Not us, but I'm going to say this, a majority of our people. And you have to understand, yes, Ninja Firewolf. She said, they said, yes, I read that article yesterday. I was surprised that they were looking into it. Because, shout out to Brother Yakoba, just as the Gary, Indiana story was going on, then all of a sudden it was being carried by many other YouTubers and social media folks. And then it started to get carried on national news all of a sudden. Look, I told you this. They listen to us. And as they listen to us, we're not saying anything controversial. It may be controversial, but we're pointing this right back to this word that they were trying to use to create their agenda. But then, just like anything else wicked, they couldn't control their wicked monster that had been created. As we had stated, look, the lies are going to be exposed, but when it does get exposed for them, it's going to be very, very vicious. And they're doing it at a time to where we're going to get into this. They got to go now to their sanctions nuclear option. Do you know what that means? They don't have anything left. Well, we've gone through all of our escalation channels. And as we have gone through that escalation ladder, this is what they're going to say. Now we're at that point of time. And again, as we had stated earlier this year, I stated it on this channel, they're going to try to utilize the nuclear option because this is now in a 30-day countdown, and this is just my opinion, a 30-day countdown because at the end of next month, there's going to be a declaration of sorts that's going to happen within the UN, more than likely. And I'm saying it's more than likely because you're starting to see the evidence of the fourth and fifth estate at the helm leading the charge of, well, let's try to get ahead of this story because the shock value won't be as shocking. And when that value happens, it's going to be an earthquake of sorts because the earthquake it's a loss of perceived power. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it. Haven't Iran been under? See, West says, haven't Iran been under American sanctions for nearly 50 years, and they still aren't broke. They still are not broken. Iran. They still haven't broken Iran. So again, it's kind of an exercise in futility because who does that really resonate with? For us, it's okay, no big deal. Do you know? You want to know how many times that they've tried to break us? If you didn't know, we've stayed under sanctions for 400 years. Tell me I'm lying. Unless you have sold out to a system that tells you and has illustrated to you. We've seen that with Diddy. Because why? Because when you're broken down in that way, you've literally seared your conscience. As Paul had stated in the New Testament, you're in a generation to where their conscience has been seared. Because if you've noticed, there's not any type of empathy or sympathy. Well, you know what? They don't have it bad. We have it bad. Well, how did you think you got it bad to begin with? How did you think that happened? Greed. Well, we just wanted to steal the oil. Why'd you need to steal the oil? Greed. Because why? Because people are now running out of the resources. Can you believe that they're now saying that they're about to run out of water? Are you kidding me? Jacoba did mention that on Friday. I was in the background. I was still getting some things done, listening in. And now they're wise men. I wanted to show an article. It's in the Wall Street Journal. They had the little drone and they were going to fly their drone and they're trying to take readings and get an understanding of how they can bring water back to a dry and parched land. Look, we have stated this. When you had famine of the word, the Most High doesn't play. Spiritual famine, then it is going to be physical. Why? Because that is a natural law. The Most High gives you a warning. You don't heed the warning, that's on you. You gonna get mad at the Most High? Well, Father, you should have told us this, and I should have. We should have had this then, and with instructions, with the manual. We needed the itinerary. What? But for the longest, it was just, I don't believe you. You're talking crazy. We're now, here we are at this time. Don't get it twisted with these articles that's happening. Roanoke, this is from WRAL. I think it's a Raleigh based news channel. Roanoke Rapids police, man found dead in apparent hanging. Investigation remains open. Roanoke police are investigating the death of 38-year-old Demetrius Fleming, who was found dead in an apparent hanging Friday. As authorities say, the case remains open and equivocal. Equivocal, excuse me. Open and equivocal. So basically, they are investigating this incident of a hanging. Roanoke Rapids said a 38-year-old man was found deleted Friday in an apparent hanging that drew that drew attention in the community and on social media. That's why. That drew attention. These are the key words right here. I'm doing this right here. I'm annotating. I'm marking up with my highlighter. Why is that? Because here's the thing. We already know that we're under siege. So the only thing that we can do and respond in this time is sharing those things on social media until they shut us down. Police Chief Lawrence Wiggins said Demetrius Fleming was already deleted when emergency crews arrived, of course. He was found at home on Roanoke Avenue, connected to a ligature, a noose. They just want to make sure that they say ligature instead of a noose. We're treating this as an open, equivocal death investigation. The Roanoke Rapids Police Department is committed to finding the facts and reporting them. This investigation is in its infancy, and it is important to neither make nor perpetuate assumptions as facts because they know that that is the historical understanding of what they can try to get away with unless they're caught on video. And I told you they're going to be sloppy because, they are a people in power, and then they get sloppy just like everything else. They were sloppy about Iran, and look what's happening to them. Iran was in the midst of a quote unquote negotiation. And the U.S. didn't like how Iran was negotiating because they were negotiating from strength. This is all back in February. I know isn't it amazing? It's already August. February, 6 months ago, they were going to try to have a big, beautiful deal with Iran, right? Big, beautiful deal. Remember all that? Not that talk, that nonsense. We should expect to have a deal. Negotiations are going fine. They're going great. And then they attacked Iran and said it was Iran's fault. We've heard this before. Now, this merry-go-round, as we had stated, when they are losing, we become their targets. Isn't it amazing? As I had stated, I said, understand that the continent is seeing this and they are coming with a plan. Because why? Because the Most High is in the midst of this. If you didn't know, this is actually called persecution. It didn't mean that everybody's going to be persecuted all at once, all at the same time. It just meant that the persecution that was happening, they were trying to make it subtle. Because why? Because, well, that doesn't look so good for the international community. This persecution is happening because why? Because they're losing. And they're losing because when they have lost their position of power, that position of power has shown up in not so good spaces. When we saw that they bombed Bahrain, well, they didn't want to tell people that Bahrain was messed up. Jabal Ali was messed up. All of these different logistics areas, and there is more to that. Those are just the ones that they've disclosed in an unclassified manner. But you can tell that Iran was hitting some things that had an adverse impact on U.S. naval operations. And it took about late July, early August for that impact to happen, but it was happening. All of these things were happening behind the scenes. People were in a panic behind the scenes. How are we going to feed people? How are we going to get supplies? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? What are we going to tell the American public? Tell them everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. The problem is that they weren't living their dreams. They were living in a dream and they were living in a false construct of reality. Rather than just tell people, hey, we're going to have issues. Have you noticed that everything now went silent with the Lincoln? Hey, you are on a gag order. I guarantee you, they probably don't even have comms anymore. Things didn't go away. They just didn't get better. Oh, all of a sudden, the care packages started going away. No, it didn't. This is literally how Napoleon started to fall at Waterloo. Hey, we can go into Moscow and St. Petersburg. We need our supply lines. We need supplies. We need supplies. They said out of 600,000 men, only like 38,000 returned. That was it. Are we having that Waterloo moment? Waterloo just wasn't, a couple of days, a couple of weeks. It took months. Yeah, Zoom to your doom says, don't forget that Mauritius got UN approval to the claim on Rodriguez Island in the Indian Ocean. The UK and US are getting backdoored and they are hiding that reality specifically on CV N72. So that's according to Zoom to your doom. So thank you for that. But what is that showing? We were saying this. Look, they can't go into the continent. They really can't go into Djibouti. Because why? Because China's got that on lock. The Houthis, they don't want to find out the capabilities and test that. It's only going to be a matter of time to where they have to say, well, due to our significant and overwhelming force and presence and the ability to deter the adversary, we have been able to claim the victory and we were able to withdraw forces to secure the homeland or something like that. To me, this is their final go. All at a time. Now, folks can say, people are going to kick the U.S. when as the U.S. is down and all of this other stuff. And the reality is, we're seeing an empire doing the best that it can to keep everything afloat. Everything. How long do they have? I don't know. As I told you all, I don't know how long they will have. And I would say this, what type of black swan event will they have? What type of situation will they have to where things become destabilized? That is going to be the next type of event that they utilize. We all see it coming. So I'm not saying anything controversial or out of the norm. The problem with these events, especially right now, is that when it does happen, it's not going to it's not going to fool anybody. That's the issue. It's not going to fool anybody. Oh, we just saw that out of the blue. No, because the issue that's going on, especially with technology and especially with these other countries that may have an interest, but their interest is trying to ride the fence, trying to be as neutral as possible. But they're seeing things and they're going to have their own satellite and imagery on up there, and they're going to realize whatever they're saying isn't happening because, again, we're getting messed up. And as I had told, I've said this, um, the U.S. has favor for a little bit with the European countries. And I say for a little bit with the European countries because the European countries have been getting some sort of a backstop of oil. But I've told this to folks, especially you all, many a time that you're you're being amenable can only last for so long. And that only lasts depending on the commodities and the resources that people have in hand. Let me go to this. This is from the Wall Street Journal. I have that there in the chat. The U.S. says oil is pouring through Hormuz. Trackers can't find it. There's a disconnect between the reality and the statements that are made. Sorry, give me a second. Okay. Here is this report. This is from Wall Street Journal. Industry firms that count ships, oil output, and imports aren't able to verify the full volume of oil the U.S. claims is getting through Iran's chokehold. Oh boy, looks like Wall Street Journal is going to be on the naughty list because folks are actually saying that this isn't reality. This is from a Georgie Kentchev, Rebecca Fang, and Somerset or Saeed, as of today, August 24th at 11:19 a.m. The Trump administration says large volumes of oil are slipping through the Strait of Hormuz. The trackers whose job it is to count the world's oil shipments see much less. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said last week The U.S. military had helped ship over 15 million barrels of and crude and oil products out of the waterway last Tuesday. He put the average oil exports through the strait over a 7-day period at more than 8 million barrels a day earlier this month. Wright said the 7-day average stood at 9 million barrels a day. The count from commercial trackers tell a different story, with estimates ranging from 2 million to 6 million barrels a day. Industry figures on the amount of crude oil and oil products being loaded on the ships in the Persian Gulf and delivered to buyers don't corroborate the U.S. claims. Do you know what that means? That means that there is a shortfall that the U.S. has to then go through to try to stabilize. And as they stabilize, things become more destable. That's why, hint, 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 that's why when you go to the gas station, that's why gas prices are going up. Everything is becoming more finite. Here's the thing I've always told people: you can believe the lie as much as you want until your pocketbook starts hurting. Oh, you don't believe that lie, do you? Now that that pocketbook is hurting, now that your pockets are looking real, real rough. Yeah, but they said, but, and then people are going to get mad and people are going to get disenchanted because then people are forced to deal with reality. We've been able to deal with reality. It's them folks. That's who they're afraid of. Did you all know that? I think I spoke about that plenty of times. They're not afraid of us. They're afraid of their own people. That's who they're afraid of. Oh, my 401k, my pension, all this, everything was government backed. We had bonds and these bond issuance, and now the cost is less because they utilized and they liquidated those accounts. And now they're trying to tell these other nations, these other countries, please don't sell our debt. Please don't sell our bonds. You know what that means? That's a matter of national security. It shows many ships are crossing the strait at night with their transponders off, making them hard to track by radio signal or satellite imagery, which I don't think is the case. When you kind of see the way the setup of the Persian Gulf, you're able to have people spotters on the water. It's so, if you are the average American citizen and you're totally unfamiliar with how this thing works, you're going to just rely on a narrative that is actually totally opposite. Because why? Because again, people don't know any better. Unless you've been there, unless you've been deployed, unless you worked over there, you're not going to know. So the ability to have a people that have been dumbed down, and the nation has been dumbed down because why? Because regular cognitive thought processes here in the United States, it doesn't happen. That's why when people go to the United States and they realize that in a basic conversation that most Americans don't know anything, and it's true, they don't know anything. People get kind of worried, like, wow, I didn't really think it was that bad, but this is kind of bad. And if you are dealing with the people that's very ignorant, here's the problem. This is the dilemma. You can be ignorant because you just don't know. And if you don't know that you're ignorant, if you at least realize you're ignorant, okay, well, there's some opportunities that can be done to bring you out of that ignorance. Hey, let's get you educated. Let's get you to understand and have some understanding. Right? Okay, well, thank you. I didn't know that. I didn't know any better. Thank you for letting me know. Or else I would have just been in the dark. The problem is we're dealing with ignorance because this is a choice in being ignorant. And when you're choosing to be ignorant, well, that's a character flaw. That's the problem. And over these last couple of years, it didn't just start in the Trump administration, not in the second. It started a while ago. It started based on a nation that prioritized the profits over people from 1619. And even beyond that, it was just that they grabbed us in that response. Hey, we got some fresh workers, some slaves that can do the job. Oh, don't worry, you can be free. It's just like in a contract. And then the enslavement period happened because nothing happens overnight. It takes usually a generation or two. It's just that right now, you don't have a generation or two of this collapse that's the impending doom. It's like, yeah, we had the slow motion roller coaster. It went down, it's kind of climbing on up. But the problem that's happening is that as this roller coaster is falling, it's going to fall some more. And it's going to continue to go because there's no brakes to it. And it's going to be at a pace, at a velocity that as it falls, well, they engineer roller coasters to have different brake areas so that when you start to spin, you break into that spin to stop the force. Because if that force continues to go at that straight line speed, any type of curve that happens, well, it breaks the track. And when that track breaks, that's when danger happens. And this track is breaking. The danger is occurring. And the reality is this: It takes other nations to be able to slow down that velocity. And no nations, there aren't nations getting in the way. Matter of fact, a lot of the nations are saying, hey, I'm taking my little break and I'm going home. Well, what are you going to do? Well, we're just going to survive. We were here before America. We're going to be here after America. We're going to be okay. And Charles, I'm glad you asked that question because that segues into this next article. Now, keep in mind that this is from the New York Times, and they are really trying to provide their slant in this article. Oh, well, they can't do anything without the US dollar and the Chinese, and everybody is hurting. And so I have to laugh because those particular slants, there's a job that they're trying to do. Okay, there's a job that they're trying to do. So make sure I shared that in the chat. The countries that could be hurt most by Trump's plan to target Iran's economy. President Trump has threatened economic penalties on countries that do business with Iran as he seeks to add pressure on Tehran to negotiate an end to the war. And Iran actually said, they said, look, we're not doing anything. We're not going to talk to this administration. Call us back in 2029. So now they're going to try to go after everyone else. This is by Leo Sands. Again, this is the article that was this morning, August 24th at 4:49 in the New York Times. The Trump administration has threatened tremendous economic consequences on any country that does business with Iran. And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was expected to unveil a new package of sanctions on Monday aimed at isolating Tehran further from the global economy. And that realization is actually, I think it's starting to kind of pour in because now you're starting to see Canada and, those disagreements and things of that nature happening as more of a story and headline than any type of sanctions and things of that nature. Because the reality is, as you all have caught it, they want to do more sanctions to a country that has amassed drone and rocket technology during punishing sanctions that they supposedly had over the last 50 years. I don't think so. Survey says I don't think so. So when they say that they're going to isolate, they can try, but the problem is if you actually take a look at this and you actually see what's going on with what they're saying, right? Look at what they're saying. They're saying this. They're going to drive away these other nations because this is really the final straw. There's a thing where there's a thing called whiplash, right? You snap back, and when you snap back, that whiplash will end up hurting you in the process. And I don't know about anybody else. If you see it, maybe you do. Hallelujah. If you don't, okay. But I see that this is probably not going to end well, and it will cause the velocity of things to go on, they'll do this at the end of the day because why? The end of the trading day, which is what they're going to do. Thank you, Zoom to you, Doom. He says, I just watched Basent announce Operation Economic Outcast. AP News posted an article about an hour ago. Goes quite nicely with the presentation. I appreciate it. Hallelujah. That's what the Most High had me talking about. So they're going to do this. They're going to see how the markets react. They'll do it because they want to do it at the end of the day. Just that's how that goes. So that if the markets do react, because the market should be shutting down here in the next couple of minutes, then they're going to try to see what type of secondary markets, how they're going to move. If treasuries are going to just be dumped, if treasuries dump, then you could literally have a, Black Tuesday on these type of announcements. And yes, Antoine saying Canada is threatening to cut electricity and critical minerals, including high-grade nickel, per the Hormuz letter. Yeah, Canada is actually September 8th or 9th, I believe, is when the agreements run on out. So, yeah, I want to get over to that article because this is all interesting. Mr. Percent said last week that the countries that continue to do business with Iran would face the full might and force of the U.S. government. Both men have described the measure as an economic D-Day for Iran. I don't think so. The more that you do that, that backlash is going to be pretty volatile. And I think this is really that case to where this is something that China was getting ready to do. That China was getting ready for this. BRICS, in my opinion, was getting ready for this. They're like, we're built for this. Think about the timing. This should have this impact in 6 to 9 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 18 months. But I want to kind of skip down in the article. China is Iran's largest trading partner and the primary consumer of its oil, according to recent analysis by the U.S. China Economic and Security Review Commission, a group funded by Congress, keyword, to examine America's bilateral ties to China. For years, China has been practically alone in its willingness to defy Western sanctions on Iranian oil, buying up to as much as 90% of Tehran's oil exports in recent months. However, Iran's ability to ship oil by sea has been all but cut off by a U.S. naval blockade. And last year, China estimated its bilateral trade with Iran to be worth nearly $10 billion, a figure that doesn't include oil. But from a Chinese perspective, that is just a drop in the ocean compared to the size of its overall economy, said William Figueroa, an expert in Chinese-Iranian relations at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. Now, understand that China doesn't disclose its full economic might and resources. China doesn't do that. China tries to be very subtle in even how it reports its own economy. Because why would you tell the bully, let's just call it what it is, why would you tell the bully how much you have? You're not going to tell the bully how much you got. Because when you tell the bully how much you've got, the bully's going to try and come at you. And that's what happens. And we're not saying this just because. We're saying this because this has been the historical case. Oh yeah. Uh yeah, we got this. Yeah, we're looking at no. They're not trying to make themselves bigger than what they appear to be. Yeah. Prophet Templeton, they're saying Iran is still shipping to China, but now by road. They've been shipping to China. And now here's the thing. Here's the thing. In this type of an economic front, you have to understand that this creates a tit for tat. What triggers all of these things? When these declarations are made, and I'm going to tell you this because, again, I'm not going to be the only channel that says it, but you're going to start hearing a lot of these channels stating this. When the U.S. kicks this off, if they kick it off tonight, if they say, hey, we're doing this, we're going to start doing these seizures everywhere, starting in the Straits of Malacca, starting in these different places, that is when you're going to see China take over Taiwan. There's going to be an invasion around Taiwan. There's going to be a blockade around Taiwan. So then people say, well, then why is the U.S. doing this anyway? Because the U.S. has to do this because the U.S. is running out of money. I've always said this. Don't people can say as much as they want to say. Actions speak louder than words. How close are we? I don't know how close we are, but I've always said this. They will let you know how close we are by their actions. Because the Most High, when he's at war, he doesn't play with you. He will crush all of your arms. Do we now start to see these drastic measures? Brother Asad, don't put that on out there on Yakoba like that. Say Yakoba has the date and time. I gotta ask if Jacoba's doing Poly Market. How successful he's been at Poly Market. Oh, let me stop. Oh, hallelujah. But now that's happening. Because again, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're winning the war. Here's the thing: when you know that you're losing, you don't have to claim that you're winning, or if you're winning, you don't have to claim that you're losing. Excuse me. If you're losing, that's when you're shouting the most that you're winning. Because why? Because in this particular enclave, this losing has really big consequences. And like I had stated, give it a few weeks. Now we're starting to see this season. Because why? Because when it doesn't work out the way that they think it's going to work out, well, cue the false flag. Hey, we done tried. They called our bluff. They're really going to go through with it. They're really going to bring on their BRICS coalition and things of that nature. Because again, what BRICS will do is it's time to go online. And what? And to protect our interest, our money, our wealth, our geopolitical survivability. Well, we're going to have to come through as a coalition of nations. Watch, it's coming. Because why? Because we don't know what the U.S. is going to do. They're grasping at straws in their collapse. We don't know what they're going to and where they're going to try to hit next. And now they're making the U.S. look like fools. And when you don't have a plan, all you're going to do is flounder and be desperate. And in the midst of that desperation, it's like everything they're doing is all messed up. Because they're in a panic crisis. They're in a panic crisis at the top, but they can't let people at the bottom know that they're in crisis. Hey, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning. Because when the moment that people can see or smell or understand crisis, then that's when people panic. Here we go. Here's the last article I wanted to share by 2 or 3 witnesses. I like to give 2 or 3 articles. AP News. Carney says Trump's demands would dismantle Canadian auto industry as Ford warns U.S. could be cut off. Why? They want to destroy everything and everybody. When the historical parasite is losing access to its meal, that parasite doesn't come off of you easily because it's so ingrained in you that parasite is going to take your life to ensure that it can actually have that last bit of breath. Let me get into this article. This was as of today. It was updated 2:15, less than 2 hours ago, by a Rob Gillies reporting from out of Toronto. Prime Minister Mark Carney said Monday that U.S. trade demands confirmed Canada's fears that U.S. President Donald Trump was seeking to dismantle its auto industry as Trump threatened new tariffs on Canadian vehicles, auto parts, and steel. And as Ontario's Premier Doug Ford warned, Canada could cut off electricity and critical minerals to the United States. Oh boy. Carney said Canada remained willing to negotiate, but only if Washington approached the talks as a partnership between sovereign countries. He said an attitude at the negotiating table that Canada is a subsidiary of the United States is not something we're going to accept. Ford, speaking in an interview with the Associated Press, said Trump has underestimated Canadians' willingness to endure economic pain rather than give in to U.S. pressure. He underestimates Canada. We're all in. Up here, we're at fever pitch. Everyone's in for an economic war. They know they're going to have to sacrifice. Now, economic war. Everybody's in an economic war. I don't think people understand that when people talk about economic wars, what happened with Iran's economic war? Iran, we're going to be in an economic war. Oops. That economic war is starting to hurt. Bomb Iran. And now you're starting to see the same old, same old. Everybody's ripping off the United States, same old, same old. Do you now see the sanctions merry-go-round and why the sanctions merry-go-round has failed? Because when you're trying to sanction the whole world, that means you have no more economic leverage. I don't care how people try to utilize every element that they can out of the fifth estate. You can't do it. And yes, see West, absolutely. This administration has been great for pushing other countries to BRICS' front door. Do you see why I wrote the book BRICS, or The Rise of Africa, the Continent, the Diaspora, and BRICS? We've stated it. The continent listened, the diaspora has been listening, and now BRICS is on. It's here. BRICS is here. Now, when I did write the book, I wanted to make sure that it was in a obviously not so threatening manner, but I'm sorry, I could see this whole thing playing out. I would say get your popcorn, but they may run out of that too. You know, exactly. Margarita says it didn't even have to go down like this, but the arrogance of this regime is off the charts. It is, isn't it? They're understand. Look, this is an Obadiah moment. This is it, because they're most fearful and afraid of the Obadiah moment turning into a Joel chapter 3 moment. Because again, when you lose a war, people don't understand. When you lose a war, it doesn't get pretty. You lose family members. You could lose them to the sword, and you could literally lose those family members to captivity. Oh, no, they're coming here. No, no, they're going there. But my family, my wife, my children, my daughter, my son, my husband, my mother, my father. See, as we were recounting these curses, they in their mind was saying, well, that would never happen to us, but we were here explaining this. These curses are going to be reversing. And when it comes on to them, it's going to be different. I would anticipate that these economic sieges, because the United States is in the middle of one, don't get it twisted. Oh, we got to do this, we got to do that. Oh, the oil is flowing, it's flowing. It's flowing out from the United States. I don't know why the gas prices are rising. That's an anomaly. Yeah, okay. And there's going to be more and more countries, because countries have smelled blood. All these countries that they thought were their friends. Oh, that'll never happen. They're a friend of ours. They're an ally. They're a friend. Half their stuff got blown up in the Middle East. Them Arabs are not happy. Okay, keep paying us money. Keep paying us money. What do you think happens when you get through not having the ability to pay the money to the Arabs? they're not going to be your friend, especially when you destroyed their stuff. Why is that? Because that's the tactic. The tactic has always been, all right, we're going to bleed you dry. And then once you're bled dry, then we go after you. Because why? Because once we know that you can't pay us, you ain't got the resources to stop us. And whoever we bring along, that's going to then be breaking some kneecaps and busting some heads. Y'all act like Saudi Arabia and all them folks aren't going to say, oh, Russia, oh, China. Remember you said that you wanted us in that alliance? Well, we're ready to join. But for some odd reason, what I say is it's a hard notion, a hard pill to swallow. To me, I'm like, well, that's how they played. That's how they played this game. And they can't even recognize when they get a taste of their own medicine. That's how they played that game with us. Can you not see that you're doing the same thing? What you've done to us, they're doing the same exact thing to you all. They're going to exhaust you. Man, I'm sorry. The scriptures early said that. Do unto them as they've done unto so many. Scriptures have literally said that. Okay, exhaust them, get them exhausted. Why? Because they labor in the very fire. Why? Because they're trying to go from one fire, put out another fire, and then next thing you know, they don't have what they thought they had. Up, all of our resources up. Because what's the most embarrassing thing for them? The most embarrassing thing for them is to say, well, we can't pay you. Huh? Oh, you can't pay? Now you done did it. We're not friends anymore. Well, friendship should be a little bit more give and take, and all I've been doing is giving you. Yeah, that's right, because you've been taking everything way more than what you've been given. Gee, I don't know. That sounds like scriptures. And all the while, as I'm telling you, we're looking at this case study in real time. Why do you think the Most High has us looking at this case study in real time? Because there's information that we have to glean, that we have to be able to recount and recall. Do you remember this? You remember that? Because why? Because what we're dealing with right here, right now, is an invaluable lesson of what happens during this pre-exilic manner. But did anybody have the mind and the wherewithal to catalog all this? Yeah, you better believe it. I'm pointing my chat GPT at this, catalog this. Pre-exilic and encyclopedia or Britannica encyclopedia. There's gonna be like 50 some volumes. Y'all remember what I'm talking about? Them bookcases. That bookcase where grandma had them encyclopedias. Yeah, we learn it around here. Man, get that a look at that right there. Yeah, and again, it says that Eastern Mediterranean colony is on the verge of collapse. Brother Asaph, yeah, because again, that is when colonization has to have an entity of a colonial structure. And when that colonial colonization structure fails, now you're seeing the end result of that. But what are they going to tell you? They're going to say everything is great, everything's okay, and then they get blown away like Shaft. That's why I tell people, I'm like, do not mock the Most High's word. Speak truth and peace to your neighbor. This isn't a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not a Hebrew or a Gentile thing. This is a Most High thing. Speak truth and peace. I've always said this. Look, to me, my thoughts, my opinions is this. Just in my opinion, you can accept it. You can say, yo, you're crazy and blah, blah, blah. Cool. And that's okay. I go off of Jacoba's timeline. I see it. But I also look at there are different inferences when it comes to how this timeline will be utilized based off of how these other countries will react. We can only see just what we see. But it's going to be what these other nations say, because again, what these other nations say has been bold. You're just not going to stand up to the United States and be like, hey, we're going to do this and that and this and that. And they're going to say, okay. No, they're going to be terrified. But now they're coming up with the boldness that's not their own boldness. How are these jokers saying this about that? How are they even having the audacity to talk about reparations? But the problem is, they can't even get up out their seat. Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. Oh, I can't move my legs. Oh, I can't raise my arm. Oh, he's going to the ER tonight. Jit, 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 jit. He tried to mess with me and busting his knee. Look at that on a small scale. And you don't think that the Most High is involved in this? All they can do from their chair, or excuse me, from their chair, is speak slanderous, murderous threats. That's it. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna do this. Oh, can't wait. Just wait. Have you noticed that every single time they try to do something, they get more and more constrained? Again, because they're more and more constrained, they're going to have to retaliate. And as they retaliate, everybody's seeing them retaliate. Oh, okay. I really do pray that our brothers and sisters do end up waking up and waking up to the point of being able to be mindful to the point to where they say, you know what? I have to take a look over my shoulder because I don't know who's going to be coming for me. And that hurts to see the lack of vigilance that we carry. That vigilance has to be shown right now. Now, that doesn't mean that we're on out there being Batman and stuff. I'm Batman. No, I mean, I'm Black Man. I'm here to make sure that all the African American citizens. Okay. But I do distinctly remember that we had a Deacons for Defense. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to carry, but goodness gracious. Can we get some phone numbers to just have a quick just to reach on out to you in the event, especially if you are in a very high risk area. I'm here in Florida. To me, Florida is always high risk, especially if you're not in the hood. We have to stop looking like we're in a safe space. There's nothing safe anymore. And the reason is that they are showing you that you're not safe. But again, as I stated, they're going to continue to do wicked because why? Because they have no choice. They're seeing their world collapse. They have no choice. No, we're gonna be able to come back. Yeah. Okay. You know, I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger, but one of the things that really derailed me from being a doctor was seeing certain things at my age. I was about 14 years old at the time. And, I for whatever reason I wanted to work in a trauma area, emergency room trauma. And I was curious and I always like to, try to see things and poke my head into things. But when you are getting ready to succumb, your body goes into a shock. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And then next thing you know, you're crashing. And then you are left to wonder, well, I thought everything was good. I thought everything was fine. And I had recently saw that with my own father. And I saw that when during the time that he was having his strokes. There was clarity, and then at that point of clarity, he then stroked on out. Now, I think the Most High that he is still on this side of the grave, but what that did, it definitely had a diminished capacity as his brain functions had died literally during the stroke. Memories, things of that nature. And it's hard when you're talking to a parent that doesn't know that you have four kids that that has lost 15 years of their memory. And I can see that in this position it's painful because the world is starting to see and understand that there has been a cognitive decline with this nation. And that's a very hard thing to grasp because as much as this place has had a cognitive decline, you're still seeing people that are trying to hold on hope, hold on, maybe, just maybe, just maybe. And those are the people that's riding on the deck chairs, thinking that the Titanic is still going to somehow stay afloat and make its journey. While the people have seen that the thing is taking on water and that folks are trying to get to the life rafts. Well, guess what? We're still there in on the deck. But instead of playing music, we're just thanking the Most High and saying, "Thank you, Father, because you're going to make a way to get us out of this sinking ship." Because when people realize that the ship is sinking and it ain't coming back, all these folks that are saying, "Oh, well, this and that. Oh, it's just gonna. It's never gonna happen. Oh, what? What? Huh?" When they have to come to that realization, especially when it's our family members that come to that realization, please, 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 don't vex them. Don't say, "Well, you should have known earlier. That's your fault." Look, don't do that. Please don't do that. Please have the compassion that the Most High has shown us. Because it was simply by the Most High's grace that we have been allowed to wake up. Simply by His grace. Because again, if you've ever been to a carnival, if you've ever been to an amusement park and you get on the merry-go-round, shoot, you can go to the mall. They have some merry-go-rounds in some of these malls. And guess what? People get enamored by the lights. But until the merry-go-round stops spinning and then people realize, oh snap, then that's when people have to exit the merry-go-round. It lost its appeal. Hallelujah. I still give the Most High praise and glory. We are in some awesome times. We truly are. Aren't you blessed to be seeing this, especially in this day, in this age? Because I can say that it's truly a blessing to get a heads up. We're not going to get the full manner of how things are going to be playing on out. You're not going to get the full play by play. That's not our job. Our job is to be able to see what's happening. Oh yeah, yeah, Sean, you already understand. Yeah, that is the case. People aren't fools. They're seeing that what is happening isn't jiving to reality. See, they were seeing these increases, these spikes, and then it started to go down. And oh yeah, oil is going to do this and that, but the manipulation isn't working the way that they thought it was going to work. I.e., remember I said, hey, China's saying that they're not playing anymore. Well, they're not, and China's now they're going back into their logistics pipeline. That's the oil shock. When people are saying, hey, we're done with that. We're done with the make believe. Okay. Ooh, that starts to hurt. Well, with that, family, I got to get up on out of here. Generally, I'm about 3 to 4. I just went a little longer. So, a lot of stuff to cover, especially on the Monday, on the work week. But thank you all for joining. I know folks are going to start to kind of understand that shift. But here we are, family, because again, I don't know what's going to happen. I'll try to see what is being reported and what's going to take place tomorrow. So, and again, I don't think it's going to be any type of major moves like that in the domestic markets because the domestic markets are generally just manipulated. But those international markets, not really, not anymore. So it's going to be a very interesting day, a very interesting season. All right, family. So with that said, I got to get up on out of here. Got to get rolling. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so. Cash App, $COVAWK1, $COVAWK1. Or you can do PayPal or Zelle at Karasi at MSN.com. So somehow, some way, they something happened like that. Things got spammed, and an email came through, and it was like, take action on this and that, and it was on the Cash App, and I said, wait a second, man, these scammers are getting good, and it's almost scary. It is scary, and I said, thank you, Father. I said the devil's a liar, because you want to know why? When you do have impact, that's one of the first things they always try to go for. But I serve an awesome Elohim. His name is Yahuwah. And I worship his son, Yahusha HaMashiach, because the Father and Son are one. And if you didn't know that, that's the only way we're making it. In in Yahusha's name. In Yahusha's name. Hallelujah. That's the only way I was able to make it in this. So that's that. And with that said, family, I got to get up on out of here. Most High willing, I'll be back on tomorrow. And with that said, shalom, salama, siemi, shalom, peace and blessings, Yasharel.